for literally like something I did not do. Like it's and it goes back to like people just like attacking Jake Paul and like wanting to see me fail.
It hurts so bad. I'm in the hospital right now. I can't even close my mouth. I keep crying.
Yo, when the World Boxing Association effectively stripped Jake Paul of his ranking and essentially shut him out, it was the moment the illusion finally shattered into a million pieces. We're talking about a complete and total collapse of the narrative he'd been building for years. In just 14 days, meant the man who once sold millions of people on the dream of being a legitimate boxing champion watched absolutely everything he had constructed fall apart right in front of the entire world. This is the night his world broke into pieces. Theme of it, his future vanished, like smoke, and nothing, and I mean absolutely nothing, would ever be the same again for him. 6, 7, 8, 9, December 19th, 2025, didn't feel like just another fight night in the calendar. Not even close. The Casa Center in Miami was absolutely packed to the rafters with cameras capturing every angle. Celebrities filling the front rows. Massive hype building throughout the arena. And millions upon millions of people watching online from every corner of the globe. All waiting with anticipation to see Jake Paul's boxing dream was actually real or just another elaborate performance. Jake walked into that ring with the confidence and swagger of a man who truly deeply believed he had become something far more significant than just a YouTuber who decided to put on gloves. Across the ring from him stood Anthony Joshua, looking calm as still water, cold as ice, and completely unbothered by all the noise and chaos surrounding the event. That contrast was striking right from the beginning. In those first rounds, something felt distinctly off to anyone who was really paying attention. Jake wasn't controlling the ring like he usually did, wasn't setting the pace or dictating the rhythm of the fight, and that trademark confidence of his started visibly leaking out of his movement with each passing minute. Joshua's patient, stalking him around the ring like a predator who had all night to finish the job properly. Even the crowd, hyped as they were, could feel that the energy had shifted in a dangerous and ominous way. By the moment, not that much is going to happen, then it almost there's a left. By the middle rounds of the fight, the numbers were already brutally exposing the truth of what was happening in that ring. Joshua had successfully landed 48 punches out of 54 attempts, which works out to about 33% accuracy. Meanwhile, Jake had only managed to land 16 punches out of 56 attempts, coming in at around 29%. Now, in the world of boxing, that statistical difference is absolutely massive. That's literally the difference between total domination and desperate survival, when man was actively fighting to win and impose his will, while the other man was just fighting to stay upright and make it to the final bell. Thought I would win against Anthony, but here I am with a broken jaw, learning the hard way. All heel. Jake spent the majority of that fight backing up around the ring, covering up defensively with his guard high and burning through his energy reserves at an alarming rate. He was steadily losing control of the ring, losing control of the distance, and worst of all, losing complete control of his own game plan. At a certain point during the fight, he completely stopped chasing victory and started chasing time instead, just trying to survive until the final bell. That's the moment when the illusion finally broke wide open on live television for everyone to witness. Then came round 6, and everything just absolutely collapsed in spectacular fashion. The first knockdown shocked the entire arena and visibly shook Jake's confidence to its core. The second knockdown brought genuine fear into his eyes and body language, and the third knockdown brought complete and utter collapse. A final devastating right hook from Joshua ended the fight decisively and sent Jake crashing hard to the canvas. The referee immediately rushed in and waved it off without hesitation. The deafening noise in the air suddenly vanished, replaced by the stunned, eerie silence. People sitting ringside and watching at home knew in that instant they had just watched something irreversible happen. That moment didn't just end a boxing match. It fundamentally ended an entire version of who Jake Paul was. Boxing is not a game. Fighting is not something you pick up and mess around with, right? If you're a fighter, if you're a boxer, if you're a mixed martial artist, right, you have two tecates, seriously, and you have to respect the game. Then the cameras caught him smiling in the immediate aftermath, which confused a lot of people. Fans watching at home thought it was bravery, respect for his opponent, or some kind of warrior spirit shining through. But the truth behind that smile was far, far darker than anyone realized in that moment. Jake's jaw had actually fractured in two separate places during the fight, and that smile everyone saw was literally just hiding the extreme damage. Once he got to the medical room, the reality hit fast and incredibly hard. A smile, doctors examined him thoroughly and confirmed the severe fractures. Then immediately rushed him into emergency surgery to repair the damage. titanium plates. I had to be surgically installed to hold his jaw together and keep it stable during the healing process. He couldn't eat normally for weeks, struggled just to speak clearly without intense pain, and barely managed to sleep at all during the brutal recovery period. This situation wasn't about boxing anymore. Wasn't about training or comeback plans. It was purely about healing a broken face and hoping his body could put itself back together. Look, that guy did great for someone who's been boxing for like less than a decade. He has had no real professor. That brutal loss to Joshua joined an exclusive list, becoming only the second opponent other than Tommy Fury to hand Jake Paul a defeat in his professional career. That night became the first knockout loss of his entire career and the second loss overall in his record. His professional boxing record now stood at 12 wins and 2 losses with 7 knockouts total. On paper, to casual observers, it might look acceptable or even respectable for someone who came from YouTube. But emotionally, psychologically, and mentally, the damage was far, far deeper than any record book could capture. His confidence took a massive hit. His momentum completely evaporated, and his entire future in the sport suddenly looked uncertain. All of those intangible things that make a fighter took a brutal, devastating hit. It's showing his lower jaw, that's mandible. And yes, it looks like it's broken in 2 places, and it's circled in these red circles. You can see this is a straw. This is supposed to be sort of 2 continuous lines. But here's where it gets even worse, because the real nightmare scenario arrived just 12 days later to twist the knife even further. On December 31st, 2025, the World Boxing Association released its official monthly rankings update. And right there, in black and white, Jake Paul was officially removed from the cruiserweight rankings entirely. The man who had entered those rankings, at number 14, back in July, riding high after his victory over Julio Cesar Chavez, Jr. was now completely and totally that ranking position had meant absolutely everything to Jake and his team. It was Jake's concrete proof that he actually belonged in the professional boxing world. It was his golden ticket toward a real legitimate championship future. Losing that ranking wasn't just a small step back or a minor setback. It was being completely erased from the conversation. In the brutal world of boxing, being unranked means you have no leverage in negotiations, no guaranteed path forward, and absolutely no respect from the establishment and sanctioning bodies. Best shot at the moment. Not that much is going to happen, and it almost evolved. There's an electrical. All of this devastation happened within just 16 days total, which is barely more than 2 weeks. December 19th completely shattered his body and put him in the hospital. December 31st erased his official status and removed him from the rankings. The sport that had welcomed him with open arms, eager for the attention and money he brought, suddenly felt very cold, distant, and unwilling. And January was about to make the situation even worse. Some have it happen in the 6th round, and it happened in a 22-foot ring. A tippy cowering is 2-0T. This one was 22T, because he wanted a bigger room to operate, a bigger space, a bigger ring. On January 4th, 2026, the Florida Athletic Commission issued Jake Paul an indefinite medical suspension, which is one of the scariest phrases in all of combat sports. The jaw fractures were evaluated as too severe and dangerous. And doctors absolutely refused to set any kind of timeline for his potential return to competition. Indefinite means exactly what it sounds like. The future is no longer in your own hands or under your control. It means your entire career now depends on bone healing, metal holding, and medical clearance. Bro, he got hit with a bomb. A right bomb! When you add it all up, the math is absolutely brutal. In barely 2 weeks, Jake Paul went from being a ranked contender with momentum to a medically suspended and completely unranked fighter whose future was uncertain. His face was literally being held together by titanium plates and screws. His dreams were on life support, and his clear path to a world title had completely collapsed into thin air. Boxing didn't celebrate him, didn't protect him, didn't give him any special treatment. The sport simply moved on to the next fight and the next story. And that's, honestly, the part that hurts the most. And look, AJ, he knew what was going to happen before the fight even took place. That's why it was so calm, and that's probably why in the first few rounds when Jake Paul's buzzing around like a _ little bee, this is going to slow down. By the time January 4th, 2026 actually arrived, the sport had seen more than enough and decided to take action. The Florida Athletic Commission finally stepped in, like the strict principal, who walks into the classroom after the students have already completely destroyed all the furniture and caused total chaos. Doctors didn't sugarcoat anything or try to spin the situation positively. They confirmed that Jake's jaw fractures were genuinely severe and medically dangerous. And just like that, without ceremony or fanfare, Jake Paul was handed the scariest sentence that exists in boxing: an indefinite medical suspension. Indefinite is not a cute or gentle word in this brutal sport. It absolutely does not mean take 2 weeks off, rest up, and come back stronger than ever. It means your career is now completely owned by X-rays, MRI results, doctor evaluations, and medical clearances that may or may not ever come. Best shot at the moment. Not that much is going to happen, and it almost left you stunned. He's not knocked out immediately, but if you look at the displacement of his jaw and the force that was in that punch, that is impressive. Doesn't look very staged to me. So, while fans were still endlessly arguing online about the fight, debating what happened and what it all meant, Jake was staring at sterile medical walls and confusing legal paperwork. His jaw was still stitched together with titanium hardware, and the future he thought he owned and controlled was suddenly on indefinite pause. Boxing as a sport does not do sympathy cards or feel-good stories. It does not wait around for anyone to heal emotionally or physically. When the suspension officially hit, the message was simple, direct, and absolutely brutal. Your body decides. Your career now, not your ambition or your social media following. Then reality delivered yet another crushing punch to his already damaged psyche. Jake's official professional boxing record now stood at 12 wins, 2 losses, with 7 knockouts total, which on paper might look respectable or decent until you actually remember what just happened and how it happened. That recent loss was his first career knockout. And absolutely nothing changes a fighter's identity faster than the first time. They get put to sleep on the biggest possible stage in front of millions. Never been better. Yeah, he's absolutely crushing. Bring out the vodka. Yeah, we're doing great in here. Lights a double break in his lower jaw. Back in July 2025, Jake walked around like the future of boxing belonged to him personally. By January 2026, he was learning the hard lesson of how incredibly fast dreams can expire. The title path he genuinely thought was straight ahead had collapsed behind him like a bridge on fire. That emotional weight hits so much harder than any right hook because it forces a fighter to finally ask themselves a terrifying question. What if this is actually it? What if this is as far as the story goes? From the sports perspective, this was the system correcting itself after letting things get out of hand. The WBA's decision sent a loud, unmistakable message to the entire celebrity boxing world that the sport has real limits, and those limits are written in blood and bone, not followers and views. Going from media darling to medical casualty is genuinely one of the most humbling journeys that exists in combat sports. 1 month you are absolutely everywhere, smiling for cameras, selling dreams and pay-per-views, 2 million. The next month you are unranked, suspended, and waiting for doctors to decide if your body even still belongs in the ring anymore. Fame did not protect Jake when it mattered most, and the sport did not slow down for him even slightly. Behind closed doors, away from the cameras and the hype, the whispers grew louder and more certain. This is the end of the Jake Paul experiment. Not a clickbait headline, not an internet rumor, just a cold feeling that settled into every room in boxing. The sport had finally closed the door on him, and it definitely did not look like it planned to reopen it anytime soon. So, what is actually left of Jake Paul now, after everything that happened? A man with titanium hardware in his face and a future full of question marks and uncertainty? A career that collapsed in just 16 days and left him staring at the ceiling. More than the spotlight, the mental toll of falling this hard after flying this high is something no highlight reel or training montage prepares you for. The real battle now is not in the boxing ring against an opponent. It is in his own head against his own doubts. Does he even come back? Knowing his body might betray him again. Should he even try when the entire system has already turned its back on him? Internet confidence is loud and easy, but boxing reality is silent, cold, and absolutely unforgiving. And then there is the loneliness that comes with it all. The cameras stop calling you. The noise fades away. The invitations dry up. The world moves on to the next story while you sit alone with your thoughts and your scars, falling from the spotlight. This fast does something permanent to a fighter's soul. When you line up the entire timeline, it almost feels completely unreal that it happened this way. On December 19th, 2025, his career was shattered under the bright lights. On December 31st, 2025, the rankings erased his future. On January 4th, 2026, the suspension locked the door. That is 16 days total from dream to complete disaster. Boxing does not care who you wear, or how many followers you have on social media. This sport only respects survival and performance, and even that respect is temporary. The myth of Jake Paul as the unstoppable crossover king finally collapsed completely. All that remained was a broken jaw, a broken dream, and a closed door. And no matter how many times it plead with it, or try to force it open. Boxing does not open doors for anyone based on their past. Jake Paul's era is Paul's era.